Okay, welcome back IT9. What we're going to do today is we're going to continue on with our slider puzzle, and we're going to get our images swapping from tile to tile. To give you an idea what this is actually supposed to look like, I'm going to hit the play button. I've pre-coded this, and I'll just walk you through the code line by line. This is what our game looks like when it's running. You notice we've got our clock ticking at the top here. I haven't got any score yet, and we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with scoring later. But today what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the image moving for this particular game. So what happens on a slider puzzle is this tile here is our empty tile. Your empty tile could be in any one of the corners, could be anywhere you like, depending on how you designed your initial image. But for me, it starts off here in position 1. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to have a variable that tracks where that location is. So what we're creating is we're creating 3 different pieces to our code. Number 1, we've got to track where that empty tile has moved to. So now it's in position 2, now it's in position 5, now it's in position 6, and position 9, and so on. And we need to have part of our code just track where that is and remember where that is. And the reason for that is the second piece of code we're going to create is going to give us the ability to swap our images. Remember, this tile here is one single image. Even our empty tile is one single image. This is an image. All these other ones are all images as well. And when I click on any given tile, what it does is it just simply takes the picture that's there and moves it over there. Takes the picture that's there and moves it over there. So basically swaps positions. Now what we want is we want it to only swap positions with tiles that are next to that empty space. Right? I don't want to be able to click over here and have an image swap. It doesn't make any sense. The only images when the tile's in this position, the only images that can swap with it are this one, and this one. So that's why we need to track where this empty space is. And if we try to click on a tile that's not next to the empty space or adjacent to the empty space, then nothing happens. So we're going to deal with our swapping routine, and we're also going to deal with our clicking routine. Our routine that tracks where the empty space is. The third thing we're going to deal with today is the actual clicking routine. So how to handle all 9 of these click events. There are 9 different images in our game, and the click event, what we want is we want one click event to handle all 9 of these. And we'll show you how that works as well. So I'm going to close this off, and let's pop up our code. Oops, I'm probably being a little bit ambitious here. I don't know if we're going to get through all of it, but we'll certainly get the swapping routine done today. Okay, so I've pre-done the code, and I apologize the last 2 tutorials. I didn't realize my code was going to be so hard to read on YouTube, so I've increased the font size now. You shouldn't have any issues with it. So we're going to deal with the empty tile first. That one's pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is, at the very beginning of your program, right here, I'd like you to create a variable called shtEmptyTile, and give it a type short, and then give it an initial value. So in this case, my initial value is 1, because my empty tile, remember, started in position 1. And every time we move that empty tile to a new position, we're going to update this variable to a 2 or a 5 or wherever the empty tile happens to go. And this is what's going to track where that is. If this particular variable is next to the tile that we click on, or stores the number of the tile next to the one we click on, then we can swap the images. If it isn't, we can't swap the images. Alright, so we're going to track where our empty tile is, and this is going to get changed every time they click on a valid tile. Next thing I want you to do is to create a subroutine that looks like this. Okay, this whole thing goes together, by the way, from this private sub all the way down to the end sub. So what you're going to do is you're going to start, move the cursor into the code somewhere outside of one of your other subroutines that we've created, and just start with the keyword private and then sub, and then give it a name. I'm calling mine swap tiles because that's what this routine does. It swaps the images in 2 different tiles. What happens is whenever we click on a button, the button that we click on, or in this case the picture box that we click on, gets stored here under this thing called one tile. And the one that we're swapping with is the other one. So we're going to create something called a swapping routine. Now what happens in Visual Basic and in other programming languages, if you want to swap something, put something from one place into another, you can't just go 1 equals the other. Because what will happen is you'll be losing one. Alright, picture this. Let's say you got a bucket full of water and a bucket full of oil. And you want to get the water into the oil bucket and the oil into the water bucket. Well, you can't just dump the water into the oil bucket because it's going to spill all over the place. There's not enough room. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to get a third bucket. So here's what happens. You're going to take any one of these buckets and dump it into the empty bucket. So let's take the oil and move it over into the empty bucket. Then the next thing we're going to do, once we've freed up the oil bucket, we're going to dump the water into the oil bucket. And then of course we're going to dump the oil back into the water bucket. Once we've done all of that, we'll have completed our swapping routine, and the oil will be in the water's original bucket and the water will be in the oil's original bucket. What I'd like you to do is to create this thing here, type in this line of code, and we're going to say SHT empty tile is equal to whatever this is stored in here, so whichever tile we've clicked on. Then, so that's, by the way, that's dealing with this thing. This is basically saying whenever we click on a tile, and if it's a valid swap, our empty tile is going to get moved to that position. So if it's currently in 1 and we clicked on 2, 2 gets stored here. This is 2 here. We're going to take the tag value, which is for tile 2, move it over to here. So now our empty tile is going to be stored in this variable here. Next thing we're going to do is to create this temporary bucket or temporary picture box where we can move our images to. And these 3 here deal with our swapping. We take one of the images, put it over there, take one of the images, put it over there, and then we fill in that one. Notice these 2 are the same. It's important that you put these in the same order. So this one is now available because we've got a copy of it over there. So then we move this image into the one that's available, and now we're ready to do our last swap. Our other tile becomes whatever was in this temporary box. And that's it for our swapping routine. It's a pretty straightforward routine. Now we're at 7 minutes. I think we're going to stop this one here, this particular video here. But when this is all said and done, what this does is it manages where our empty tile is, currently at 1. As soon as I click that, this line here moves the empty tile to 2, because this is the one I clicked on. The tag value for the one I clicked on is 2. That becomes 2. And then this part down here deals with the swap. So every time I click on it, the image that's in their empty tile gets swapped with the image that I click on. And that is all she wrote. Now we'll deal with the clicking events in the next tutorial.